Good morning, entrepreneurs and builders. Welcome to the Breaking Business Podcast, where we don't just talk marketing and entrepreneurship, we dissect it, we challenge it, we extract those golden nuggets that you can actually use every single day. Business is in your blood, and I'm here to make it boil. I'm your host, Dr. Wood. Now let's break it down and build something great. Alrighty, now that I'm in a more comfortable spot, let's jump right into it. The profit potential of this lizard business that I was talking about. In short, yes, there is money in lizards, especially in these things called designer morphs, which are rare breeds of skin tone, skin type, skin color, which some of these rare morphs will go for anywhere between $1,000, $2,000 profit. Whereas legendary ones have been seen to hit around 50,000. But since we're going to go with the average, we're going to go with the common. It's around $20 to $50 for the common types. To earn real money at this endeavor, I found out you'll likely need to specialize and build a reputation around your breeding methodology. Smart breeders don't just sell the animals, they sell the process, the enclosures, the feeders, consultations, care guides. Some have their own particular methodology around building growth of their reptile versus techniques for the actual mating ritual system. But margins, which are obviously more important to the profit potential, a lot of breeders have reported around 50 to 65% net profits. But remember, that's after covering all the expenses. Revenues vary widely from species and setup size. You can get lucky with the more tantalizing morphs. Most serious breeders will then turn around and reinvest these profits to scale and make it a long-term game. Like any type of business, after you reach the first 6, 7 months of reinvesting, it starts to compound after that. But with that being said, what do the startup costs look like? If you're serious about this and you really want to put it in, you need to expect somewhere between 10,000 to 50,000 for professional setup for the entire breeding business. I'm talking about the breeding stock. Rarer equals pricier. So if you want to try to up your game in terms of genetics and playing that, then it's going to cost you more, obviously. You also want to do enclosures, heating lamps, UVB lights, thermostats, and if you really want to get fancy with it, some sort of automation around any of these really. So heat lamps, there's automation for during the winter time. You want to have it a little bit higher than normal, under the summertime a little bit lower than normal, etc. And same for the UVB lights. You can have a night cycle, day cycle automation. Then there's food such as insects, supplements, calcium suppositories, and automations around feeding processes for this. The last thing is going to be your startup costs around business licensures, permits, and potentially a website or some type of storefront. Many breeders are going to start with a spare room in there. Either it's going to be in a garage or spare bedroom, even a little workshop in the back, but eventually you're going to need a custom shed or commercial system to mass produce. Think about the way that chickens are done in factories. Imagine that concept and bring that to lizard breeding. Cost like this is going to add up fast, especially if you want to be seen as a professional from day one or seen as somebody who knows what they're talking about to get the process started a lot faster. Let's move on to the legal challenges. I'm not going to get into absolute specifics around regulation, but I am going to touch on a little bit around what your kind of focal points are going to be. Because this isn't a casual side hustle, you're working with live animals. There is a level of moral, ethical, legal protection systems in place to make sure that you are properly giving each of the reptiles due diligence. And depending on where you live, which country you live in, you're going to have to start with the following. 1, a pet dealer license. And this, again, depending on where you live, can vary state by state, country by country, depending on what type of reptile. Some are more into the genetic makeup. Some are just classifications of lizard. You have, if you're selling snake versus turtles, there might be a completely different system in place for compliance. But you want to, using this in conjunction with your documentation for every single animal you sell, documentation for your process of feeding, watering, sheltering, anything that basically covers your ass around making sure that you treated the animals properly in their care. You're not abusing them, you're not starving them, you're not putting them into an enclosure, creating stress conditions. This type of compliance, depending on which animal welfare government body that you report to in your specific area, you can get more details. Just research, right? Research what species that you're trying to sell and where you're located to get started, and around the legalities. Some species are going to be restricted. Obviously, some are going to be more exotic than others. You don't want to get into a exotic animal trafficker situation. Definitely do further research on the legalities before you even, if I had to rank, legalities should be the first thing before you look into profitability. You need to keep records, you need to follow up, you need to adhere to the changes week by week, month by month. These shifting laws are very important when dealing with live animals. With that, those three main things: the profit potential, startup, legal challenges. I want to talk a little bit about the daily grind that you might be facing when you start up this business. It's not in the traditional sense of a passive income. So passive income in your mind is usually, I put money somewhere and more money appears. Something happens, more money appears. I don't have to mess with it day to day. This is not that type of passive. The passive comes from the fact that you don't need to actively participate in the literal mating process between the animals, but you do need to do certain things like daily feeding, misting. If you have an enclosure that doesn't have automated misting, we're talking about cleaning, health checks. If you are mass producing the breeding, mass producing eggs, you're going to want to think about egg incubation and hatchling care. No juvenile and egg hatch system is going to be the same between different animals. Then there is the aspect of pet vet visits. So with exotic species, you can't take it down to a generic place that does cats and dogs. You need to find where your exotic species can be adhered to. And then you're going to think about things like electricity bills, heat bills, and then the humidity and lighting. Don't forget that customer service, shipping, website management, marketing, these, I would say, regular but not regular parts of operating your business, you're going to have to pay more attention to. And that weekend off that you were thinking of from a traditional brick and mortar product selling store, you might end up packaging the live animals, doing overnight delivery. You can't send out a mass of lizards in a crate for weeks on end with little food and no water. You know, they're going to die. You're not adhering to regulation. And then there's the idea that you might have like frequent vacations with this business. No, probably not, unless you find someone who's qualified to cover for you and adheres to all the things that you need to adhere to. So, with all that being said, who succeeds in the type of business who succeeds in the reptile breeding business? What's their personality like? And there's typically three types that we go into. There's the hobbyist turned pro breeder who grows from the passion, invests slowly, and builds trust in the niche. They're not millionaires, obviously, but they are sustainable and they focus on this being their passion project. It's the slow grow, the long haul, the people who are going to be doing it for decades at a time. And then there is, similar to dog breeders. There's going to be the morph investor who goes all in on these high-end genetics. Koi fish breeding is also one that does this, where they focus on the bright, the pretty, the golden koi, and they can sell for 40, 50,000. And this is a high risk, high reward because, again, it's live animals. If you don't have a deep knowledge of the trends or genetics or even the breeding process, you could accidentally kill a multi-thousand-dollar lizard. Then there's the final one, which I would say most of us belong into, which is called the overwhelmed newbie. We're the ones who underestimate cost, overproduce common species, and struggle to scale ethically, profitably, and just are flailing. Success stories emphasize that specialization, community trust, and long term thinking are what matters in terms of reputation building, business building for live animal breeding. With that, I think that the verdict, the final takeaway that we should talk about is this a real business? And the answer is, of course, if you are serious, you educate yourself on the process, and you're passionate about the animals themselves, you shouldn't go into this thinking, oh, it's going to be sticking two animals in a cage together and feeding them until they breed. No, it's not going to be that easy. There is a high barrier to entry in terms of financial investment and time commitment, but if you add a lifestyle of passion and professionalism to this, and you dedicate yourself with this, along with doing legal due diligence, knowing that every rule is there for a reason to protect yourself, the animals, and the populace at large, then it's a good niche. If you're looking for it to be fast cash, though, that's not going to happen, and I wouldn't recommend this if your mentality is fast cash. But let me know in the comments, do you think that selling lizards sounds like a business that is viable? Do you think you'd try it sometime? Or is it better kept as a hobby, small time, and shouldn't be something that's monetized? If you agree with my opinions or agree with my process, let me know below. If you disagree, also let me know below. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.